Last week, we went 25 years into the future of the Guernsey save game, and the stuff we saw was a little bit interesting. Today, we're going to start off doing 50 years, then after that, 100 years. Now, obviously, a lot of the players we're now going to see, they're not going to be players that we know. It's an alien landscape at this point, but one thing that I love to see off the bat, under best relationships, we have João Graça, who is manager of Serbia, as one of our favourite personnel. He's 73. I mean, my manager at this point is 97. And you know what? Since he is obviously the only player from Guernsey, at least in my favourite personnel, who appears to be still active in football 50 years after I've left, we should probably have a look at what he's done here. He's managed Croatia, Serbia, Guernsey. He's managed Guernsey. He managed them for less than a year. Yes, folks, how is it going? Welcome back to Part to Prem for the final time. We're in the future. Today, the year is 2090. And I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm looking at this league history graph, scratching my eyes, because Guernsey, they've won a Premier League title last season. That's right. You can see here for the 2088-89 season, Guernsey top, Blackburn second, Middlesbrough third. Yeah, we are starting to get towards that weird point in the future of the save game. And if you're wondering how convincingly did they win it, well, you can see here they win it by a pretty hefty 8 points in the end over Blackburn, who for 4 years in a row finished second. Beyond them, Middlesbrough and Sunderland rounding off the top three. Notts County in the Premier League I've just spotted there. Peterborough getting European football. Now, you might have spotted it on the club screen here. They do still play at the Work the Space Arena. They've not added any seats to it lately, which is somewhat of a surprise. Their current manager is Paul Reynolds, who, he could be related, I suppose, to the other Reynolds that is rather renowned in non-league football at the moment. This guy, 59 years old, he's on £155,000 a week. He was born in Gillingham. Poor bloke. And if you were wondering about their key player, they have Greg Spires, answers on a postcard. I don't think he can tell me. 26 years old, 75 caps for Northern Ireland already. He is a ridiculous player, isn't he? He came through the Gillingham Academy. Gillingham, just a recurring theme today. Signed for £2.9 million. He's got 17 player of the matches in 38 games. That is just silly. Now, despite winning the league last year, I have just spotted Guernsey actually this season currently only 5th. Media prediction of 6th, though. So that last season that they won the league in, probably a little bit of a fairy tale run. I have also just noticed there's £26 million of loan debt, but the bank balance, positive 64 million. Finally, all that debt that I've just spotted something else that you're probably screaming at your screen about. They lost a Champions League final. They lost a Champions League final this year. They got blown out by Chelsea 4-0 in the final. They didn't even have a shot on target. They didn't even have their keeper guard 5.1. This is the goalkeeper that played for Guernsey in a Champions League. I hate it here. I suppose at this point, probably worth checking the other competitions they've done stuff in. So, they last won a Champions League in 2048. That was in that decade period after we left the club in 2040. They finished runner-up in 2049, and then, many years later, 40 years later, you might have spotted things here. They finished runner-up for the first time in a very, very long time. In terms of Premier Leagues, well, we've just seen they won one in 2089, but before that, It was a while since they last won the league. In fact, they hadn't even been in the top 3 for 30 plus years. So maybe a bit of a Leicester-style run there. Club World Cup, they've not won in the last kind of few years. Europa League, they actually won in 2086. I stumbled as I said that there because it just doesn't feel right as a date. No, 2086 will be a real date in 63 years. If I'm still around from that, I'll probably stumble over it then because of old age. Elsewhere, you can see here, Super Cups, they've finished runner-up on a few occasions. FA Cup, they won once in 2083, not won it since. Conference League, they won in 2085. Carabao Cup, they've not won recently. They have finished runner-up on a few occasions over recent decades, and then I'll just scroll down further. They won the Papa John's Trophy in the period after I left. That's cool to see. Of course, when I say they won it, it's actually the youth team. I mean, here is the trophy cabinet. It's not got that much more filled up since we were 25 years in the future in the last 25 years. I mean, when you look at things, they finished 4th in 2075-76. Mental, they went from 10th place in the league to winning it. That must have been just a heroic run against the odds. Now, we already did see that Grasser was manager. I kind of feel like we should look at the history of managers to see if there's any other legends here. But I do want to try and find Grasser first. Grasser, where art thou? Here he is. He was in charge for less than a year. He won 36% of his games. It was like Frank Lampard at Chelsea. Grasser waited his whole career to go back to Guernsey and blew it. And the worst thing is, besides his motivating, he's actually quite a good manager. I'm looking through this list of managers, expecting to recognise some of them. At this point in the universe, they're all probably fake players. Joe. Okay, this is the Joe that I thought it might be. This guy played for Bournemouth when they were relegated and we snapped up a few of their players. He was a centre-back. I did consider signing him, and then Leipzig got him instead in 2036. He had 400 games for them. He then went on to be a manager for a load of years. And, during his time at Guernsey, he won nothing. He was sacked after... I was going to say he was sacked. No, he left. He probably left before he was pushed. After a year and 37 days. I'm just wondering, 50 years into the future, are people still holding on to their records? They are indeed. Alanis, most league goals for a player, 291. Maicon Costa still has the most appearances by a player in the league. Most league goals, Brandon Charles still leads the way. I love the fact that there's kind of a blend of old Guernsey and new Guernsey here, at least during our time. It feels like a lot of the records have actually stood the test of time as well. Youngest player, not a player who still plays football, so I can't click on his name, but there was a player there, and Lan is still with the record for most goals in a season. Kouakou still has the record for most assists. Most pro of the matches, Greg Spires. I think he has taken away Tyler Forbes' record this season just gone, which on the one hand, it's cool to see a record from Tyler Forbes last quite so long. Bit annoyed that this Greg geezer's taken it from him. I will just show this here. This screen is a mess to look at. But if you want to pause and look at past league positions, you can see here, obviously, they won the league last season. Besides that, they have been a bit of a mid-table team, it appears, for a while. Why is the game not letting me scroll? Football Manager, can I scroll? There we go. I just have to have nothing selected. It seems like every few years, they have a few years where they finish like 4th and get Champions League football. And then there's a few years beyond that where they just struggle and are kind of mediocre. I mean, look at that, the glory days. Back when it was my team. This new bunch could never. I've got to say, I can't believe we've come back on the 50th kind of anniversary after leaving, and they finished runners-up in the Champions League. It's not a competition they've played in a lot. Matt Callahan for them, this guy here, 32 years old. He has 16 goals in the Champions League. This is a man who came through the Guernsey Academy, has 77 caps for England, and has just been Guernsey till he dies, which I absolutely love. He also got top goal scorer in the Premier League for the season just gone, which seems mental because he does not look like a striker, does he? Shall we have a look at the kind of graph bit, where we can look at the tree? I want to look at the tree. Who did Guernsey beat to get here? They beat Barcelona, Bayern Munich, Middlesbrough they beat 5-4, Nancy, who going strong in France, they beat 5-3, and then in the final, we don't talk about the final. And like I already said, because of the nature of going 50 years into the future, there's a lot of stuff I could look at here, but not a lot of it is going to be particularly recognisable. What I do want to check real quick before we go 100 years in the future is the best 11, where, I mean, here is the best 11. If they got Jaime, okay, there's a different Jaime who plays for Guernsey. That's confusing. This one's a centre-back. I know he's Brazilian. In my head, he's the son of our former Jaime. I mean, he's part American, part Brazilian. He's not the Jaime sibling that I want him to be. I love this, by the way. Went from Flamengo to Guernsey for 15 million. Had a crazy career at Guernsey. Left to go and play in Qatar on a free transfer. Under his favoured clubs, did you spot this? Under his favoured clubs, Flamengo and Al Sadd. He spent a year in Al Sadd earning bank and he's decided they're a favourite club. Guernsey, who he's literally in the best overall 11 for, with almost 600 games, do not feature in his favourite clubs. Yes, I am taking it personally. Alani starts up top in the overall best 11. Cadman on the left, Sula on the right. Cool to see Callahan actually in at centre attacking mid. This guy who appears to be a bit of a folk hero of modern times. 52 goals as well for England, by the way, for the striker. Perez and Gridin at CDM. Sweeney still in the side. This guy, Lewis, has broken into the team. I can't click on his name, so if you want to make up a backstory for Mike Lewis, I can't fact check it, so I will take anything written in the comment section as a backstory to this man as absolute fact. I mean, if I hit the "Where are they now" button on this screen, surely it's just going to tell me they've all retired. I feel like that is what the game is going to tell me here. Where are they all? The vast majority have retired. Callahan is the only one still at the club. Grasser manages Serbia. Jaime is at Liverpool. The different Jaime. I don't know why I clicked on it. I expected it to be my Jaime, but it wasn't. I'm a little bit sad that of all these players in the best 11, a lot of our former players at least just never went on to play in football. I mean, you'd get them in the relationships column if they were still active in the game. I suppose 50 years into the future, like Grasser is 73. He's going to be retiring soon. So maybe a couple of others retired. But yeah, there does seem to be a thing in Football Manager where if you start with a big kind of selection of leagues, like I did with all the lower leagues of England, and then you remove them at a later date, it causes like an off balance between staff and players, which means there's less staff spots available. That's what I used to explain it in my head. But it could be something completely unrelated to that, to be honest. I realise I haven't shown this at any other point, and I will probably show it on this series review video later on. But if you're wondering, how are things going, Jack? It's quite long simming into the future. I had 0 days on holiday before this. We've done 18,000 days. I've got to go do another 50 years right now. So brace yourselves. I might look older. I mean, I won't look older because I'm recording it in a moment. I've already got the save game. But yeah, we're going to the year 2140. We're going to do that now. We'll have a look at Guernsey, have a look at what's gone on in all the other leagues over the course of the last 100 years. Don't go anywhere. There's probably weird stuff happening. Okay, the date is 2140 and the Liverpool job is available in the Premier League. So good news, everyone. Liverpool not going to get relegated in the next 100 years. The thing I'm wondering, though, is when I click on Premier League here, are Guernsey still going to be in the league? They haven't been relegated so far, which I feel like I've not really bigged up enough. And looking at things here, they've still not been relegated. In fact, they've qualified for the Champions League this season after a very mediocre league season. They must have won the Europa League. Okay, here is the Guernsey club screen. First things first, they finished second in the league a few years ago. This season, or actually last season, they finished fifth. But this year, they won the Europa League final. So when we last checked on them watching them bottle a Champions League final, they've not won the grand prize, but they have won this thing here. Guernsey won. Monaco 0, and the player who got the goal was Frihammer, who is a Swedish player, 23 years old, centre-back, probably the Lautaro Rios special. Back post corner to this man. Sorry, I've noticed something here. This man's won a World Cup with Sweden. Sweden have won a World Cup in this universe. Sweden. If you're out there, Swedish viewers, you've only got to wait until 2138. While we're here, we might as well look at the other past World Cup winners. Wales have won it twice in the space of 12 years. That's weird. I'll scroll through here. As of all these in the future videos, there is just going to be stuff that I miss. Scotland won a World Cup. I hate this universe. But no, there is going to be stuff I miss. So if there's anything you spot here that I haven't seen, please let me know all about it. In fact, Scotland won a World Cup in 2042 as well. Scotland, you're bloody massive. I don't know what to tell you. Also, Australia runner-up in 2130 to Italy. That could have been a big day for the Aussies. So Guernsey did win a Europa League this season just gone. We'll check what they won elsewhere in just a moment. Their social media followers is at 25 million. I feel like that was like at 80 million when I left the club. Is that a case of Twitter's been deleted from the internet, so now my social media followers have dropped, or is that just how it works in Football Manager? Not entirely sure. Either way, bank balance, positive. Estimated value, there is no debt there. This club is debt-free, which makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside. And in fact, because of that, they have actually been able to upgrade their facilities. Over time in Football Manager, facilities degrade. I did notice when we went into the future before, they were a bit crap, the facilities. They have managed to solve that problem now. Now, unfortunately, in the 50 years since they finished runners-up in the Champions League final, they've not made the final since, have Guernsey. So sad times there. In the Premier League, they won it in 2109. Is that how you'd say that date? 2109 is going to be a glorious year. Here is the league table when they won that title. They beat Blackburn to the title by 2 points. And unfortunately, that is the last time Guernsey have won the Premier League, and the only time they've won it in the last 50 years. They did finish runner-up in 2134. They've not featured in many Club World Championships. They've not made it to the final and finished runner-up in one. The FA Cup, they won it in 2092. They finished runner-up on a couple of occasions. In fact, I say more, a couple of occasions. They've lost the last They've lost the last 5 FA Cup finals they've been in. You know how I always had problems with this competition? Seeing Guernsey finish runner-up just again and again and again here, it makes me feel less bad about the fact that I couldn't win it. I think Guernsey are just cursed in the FA Cup. It's the only logical explanation. Does look like Guernsey have had some okay success, though, in the likes of the Europa League. If we look at past winners here, they've won it on a few occasions. Most recently, 2101, is that the most recent one? No, tell a lie. 2117, is there any more recent than that? Of course there is. They won it this season just gone. So yeah, they've won the Europa League a few times, and in fact, I spotted in the Conference League, I think they've won this on a couple of occasions. 2115, they won the Conference League. They won it in 2107, 2106 as well. And also in 2098. Apparently Guernsey love the Conference League. I don't know if that's something to be proud of or not. If you're wondering, by the way, about recent Champions League winners, I appreciate I've just shown the Europa League and Conference League, so hopefully you got to have a peek at their winners. Inter, very, very good, are Inter Milan in the year 2140. Their key man is Ndoj, definitely how you say his name. He's rather good. He's the best footballer in the world and he's Albanian. I must admit, in this universe, Blackburn have been very, very good. Like, concerningly good. Like, I mean, you can see here, look at their league history. They won 5 Premier League titles in a row. And whilst they haven't won any recently, when every single time we've looked at a competition, Blackburn are just omnipresent. They're just there. They're just lurking. Borussia Mönchengladbach have won a load of Champions Leagues as well, which is kind of interesting to see. They've clearly had a dominant spell in Germany. Manchester United did have a good spell in the early 2100s, and I'll continue to scroll here because Peterborough United won a Champions League. No one tell Lelujo. Please, thank you, let's move on. I'll tell you what I find really interesting. We've done 100 years in the future here. Guernsey have never been relegated. Like, what has been their worst finish in the Premier League? They finished 15th in 2098. But considering they've been in the Premier League now for 100 years without me, that's pretty mad that they've never been relegated in that time. So even though we were only in the Premier League at Guernsey for having 6 or 7 seasons, we really did establish kind of just a foundation that the club has been able to exist off for 100 years, which is wicked to see. I feel like I was hoping the trophy cabinet would be a little more filled than it is now. But you know what? There has been a few Premier Leagues over the years. There's been a few extra European competitions thrown in here. I feel like it's safe to say we have left a legacy at this club. If you're wondering, by the way, their current key player is Peter Kershaw, 21 years old. Here he is. He's currently unhappy and wants to leave. He is rather good, isn't he? They signed him from Bristol City. No, they didn't. They didn't sign him from Bristol City. They loaned him to Bristol City. In fact, this man generated at Guernsey. So even this far into the future, Guernsey are producing some of the world's best players, which is really, really cool to see. In fact, I want to look now at players homegrown at Club Guernsey, and also we could put place of birth Guernsey. Has anyone been born in Guernsey who's good? No. I guess we just rely on our affiliates and our big, broad recruitment network to actually bring players in. Who is the most valuable player after Kershaw, who's homegrown at club? It's this guy, Marbod Mestica. Definitely not said his name correctly. He's been signed by Bayern for £36 million. He's awful. They spent £36 million on this man. They have been scammed. Either that or the great right-back and left-back shortage of this universe has continued for over 100 years. Jack Walker now plays for Manchester United. This guy came through Guernsey's academy, probably was better back in his heyday, but he left to Chelsea for £53 million. So, yeah, Guernsey's still producing some really good players through their youth intakes, which is... like I said already, that's just cool to me. I almost wish we'd been able to stick around longer to see some of these players come through during our time at the club. I will just quickly flash up the record screen here. Most of the records, to be honest, have remained intact, although Spires did set a record for highest average rating, so that's upset me a little bit. Here is the overall best 11. Maicon Costa is still in goal. Craig Sweeney, De Hart, Sula, Alanis, they all maintain spots in the starting 11. Grasser on the bench, Cadman now on the bench, and then a load of players that, to be frank, I don't recognise. But one thing I am noting here is there is a lot of players with a lot of appearances for the club. Seems like a lot of players come to Guernsey, and then they're just Guernsey players for life. I did a Where Are They Now of the overall best 11. There's only 2 of the players from that best 11 still at the club. One of them is Director of Football at Nice, and the other one, Owen Walker, Assistant Manager at Manchester United. Come back to Guernsey, mate. You don't want to be playing for United. Even as an assistant manager, that's basically playing for United. It's not on. Guernsey had a tycoon takeover in 2120, and then the tycoon scaled down his funding 5 years later when they didn't win anything. I think I have a save game in the year 2120, and whilst I don't think I'll be playing it on YouTube myself, I might put that up on the internet for you guys to try out. Just as a reminder, all the save games up to a certain point with the In the Future ones are currently available for patrons over on the platform Patreon. There's a link below if you want to check it out. On Wednesday this week, the post on Patreon becomes public to everyone. When that happens, I might add in a few more save games. So, yeah, if you fancy managing in the year 2120, trying to get Guernsey back to the glory days, you could actually do that. Anyway, to wrap things up today, we will just have a look at the past winners. We have already looked through the World Cup and major European competitions. As for the Premier League, you can see who won the league in recent years here. Chelsea and Manchester United still right up there, but Blackburn Wanderers and Wolverhampton Wanderers just consistently appearing towards the top. In more recent years, it hasn't actually changed that much. I mean, Liverpool have had a spell of dominance, but yeah, Blackburn, Middlesbrough, Wolves, and then kind of just the usual suspects. And Middlesbrough. To be fair, Middlesbrough massive. Over in Ligue 1, I've just noticed, we saw Nancy, right, playing in, like, one of the competitions. They're in the relegation playoff. Nancy are in the relegation. They're in Ligue 2. They're in Ligue 2, but just as a reminder, they were playing in the Champions League when we were looking at things. In fact, they made it to a Champions League semi-final and lost to Guernsey in that final. And now they play in the second tier of France, and they've just lost in the promotion playoffs. That's sad. But not perhaps quite as sad as the fact that Lyon have won the league every year pretty much for the last, long time. Almost 40 years Lyon have just about been dominant. Occasionally a bit of Brest has snuck in there, but yeah, Lyon too strong. Before that, Monaco had an era. Metz won 3 in a row, and then it was just Nancy and PSG battling it out for a while. Over in the Bundesliga, Bayern Munich won the league. I mean, coloured me shocked. To be fair, past winners are a little bit more varied, although Dortmund don't seem to feature anywhere here for Dortmund fans, I'm afraid to say. Borussia Mönchengladbach have won the league a lot. Wolfsburg finished runner-up in the Bundesliga 7 years in a row. I bet they love that. Hoffenheim had a long spell of dominance. Before that, it was Bayern Munich. I mean, it was Bayern Munich for about the first 50 years of this simulation, and then eventually Hoffenheim happened. But yeah, really, the Bundesliga just dominated by eras. We already saw in the Champions League, Inter Milan are dominant. Perhaps not surprising to see them dominant in Serie A as well. Although, unfortunately for Juventus, who only lost 1 game all year, they still finished second and ultimately 6 points behind Inter Milan because Inter Milan are quite good. Here are the past winners. Milan did win it in 21-26, but besides that, it's just been the Inter and Juve show for the foreseeable future. Milan having a few spells of dominance here and there. Napoli popping up. Nothing too crazy happening in Italy. And as for La Liga, I was getting excited because I'd just seen that Villarreal had won the league. No, sadly, the Spanish league might be the worst here. Real Madrid have basically won it every single year. Betis had a spell in the early kind of 70s, late 60s where they were good. Real Madrid are too good in Football Manager, it turns out. I mean, they're quite good in real life as well, aren't they? They're just a good team. I will cover these really quickly because I do have the kind of British leagues loaded. Here is the Northern Irish Premier League. For all the Northern Irish viewers out there, I'm just going to scroll through this quickly. Drink it in, enjoy it. Larne and Linfield fans, I think you're up good here. Your lot have just been sharing the league title for the last, 50 years. And over in the Scottish Premiership, Rangers, very, very, very good. I mean, Celtic have won it here and there, but Rangers, the dominant force of Scottish football, Livingston sneaking in occasionally. Celtic did win and have kind of a decade of dominance in the 80s. But besides that, in recent years, yeah, Rangers up top. Queen of the South doing very well too. And last but not least, for my Welsh viewers out there, I was about to speak some Welsh, but I don't know any Welsh. Here is what's happened in Wales in all the recent years. I mean, Bala are good. Bala are really good. And TNS are good. TNS are really... Okay, look, TNS are great. Never doubted TNS. It's just a screen of TNS until Bala decided to make it a screen of Bala. Yeah, not interesting, Wales, I'm sorry. Now, alongside that 21-20 save game, I will also make the save game here 100 years in the future available on Wednesday for everyone. So if you want to have a look at stuff that I've not covered in this video, you can do it over there. If you're wondering about Club World Cup Championship winners, I was wondering if anyone outside of the European lot had won it. The answer is a resounding no. Now, as always with these kind of in the future videos, it's impossible to cover everything, but I hope I've been able to give you a little bit of a snapshot for what's happened in the 100 years since we left Guernsey over the course of the last few videos. Like I already mentioned on Patreon, on Wednesday, the post will become available for everyone with save game files, so if you want to continue from where we left off, if you want to manage Guernsey as they got promoted to the Premier League for the first time, or the year where I bottled the National League playoffs, those save games are available as well. Make your own alternative universe. If you do end up playing those save games, I'd love you to tweet me your progress on how you're doing on Twitter, or use Threads. Threads is a thing, isn't it? You know, the new Meta Facebook platform. Follow me there. It's at Work the Space. Now, as for our plans with FM content for the next week, this week I'm going to have a ranking of the top 10 away days based on score. A trip down memory lane where we look at the 10 away days that scored highest in order. If you want to leave a prediction for who won based on your memory, feel free to do that. Beyond that as well, we will also have a big series overview video. That'll be a long kind of deep dive, a podcasty style video where I just ramble about the save game at the point where we left the club, rather than in the future, although I'm sure there'll be a few points of reference to stuff we've seen here and in the previous in the future videos. And yeah, I think that wraps up everything from me today, at least for now. So I hope you enjoyed this deep dive. If there was anything that you spotted that I didn't see, let me know about it down in the comments. This video did take a long time to simulate in the future to do. I've racked up an energy bill, so if you want to help me out, leave a like. Helps the video hit the algorithm. Also means I can keep the lights on, because I've wasted a lot of extra electricity simming into the future, and by wasted, I mean invested sensibly. Anyway, I'm going to leave things here. Hopefully I'll see you guys on the next one, and until then, take it easy. It is me, Jack. I'll talk to you all in a bit. I'm out.